Hey guys, so I'm back with the channel again, and I'm gonna try something a little bit new to just kind of maybe branch out a little bit. I'm gonna be doing an album review on Dookie by Green Day. There it is, and this is their third studio album. It was released in 1994 after Kerplunk, which was a great album, and there's a huge jump in quality on this album as far as the sound and the mixing and everything. They got a better producer, and this is their first record on a major record label. And as you can see right there, I don't know if my camera will focus on that. There we go. It's got some very creative artwork. If you find like a file of it, you can find some really detailed pictures of it online if you just want to look at that. Um, it's really interesting. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it sums up the album pretty good. It's pretty chaotic, and my camera didn't focus on me. There we go. It's pretty chaotic and definitely an experience, I guess. So, there's no real story going on in here. It's just a collection of punk songs. And they do kind of, some of them connect, like some of them fade into each other. So, some of the standout tracks to me on the album are, first of all, Burnout. Burnout was the song that kind of got me more interested in this album. I heard it on, I think, Green Day Rock Band when I was way younger, and I thought it sounded awesome, so I wanted to listen to more of the album. And then Having a Blast is kind of a violent song, I guess. The lyrics are kind of violent, but it's really catchy, really aggressive sounding. And it's got that, for all you music buffs out there, it's got that Mixolydian feel where instead of, and I'm going to get really deep into music theory for a second, but stay with me. So instead of going to a dominant, or they go to a dominant seventh instead of going to a major seventh, which kind of gives it that almost bluesy classic rock, bluegrassy feel, I guess, but in a punk rock setting, which is kind of interesting. And then there's Chump, which is really aggressive also. It's about Billy kind of accepting that he's different than everyone else, and people might think he's a loser, but that's okay. Kind of about him being himself. And that fades into Longview eventually. And, like, it's cool. It ends. So Chump. So I'm going to back up a little bit. In Chump, there's this really cool breakdown section that's really chaotic and with a lot of guitar feedback and really fast chords and all that stuff. And then the drums at the very end of Chump are the same drums at the beginning of Longview, if that makes sense. So the two tracks fade into each other almost like they're one song. And the drums go on, and then Mike Dirnt comes in with a really cool bass line. Probably one of the most recognizable bass lines of the 90s because it was played all over the radio. In fact, I think Billy said that, Billy, their singer, said that Longview was the first Green Day song he ever heard on the radio, and that made him really excited to hear his band on the radio. So that's a little cool bit of information there. So yeah, then Longview progresses into more fast punk after the verses, then it goes back to the bass line, and then the verse, then the bass line, and it's a really unique sounding song. I really like that song. Then it goes into Welcome to Paradise, that was actually on the album before this. They re-recorded it for Dookie with a better sound engineer, or I wouldn't say a better sound engineer, but better quality with more money and a higher budget. Sounded more professionally produced, polished up the mixing and made the cleaning a little bit more tight. Very good song. It's also one of their more popular songs. And then there's Pulling Teeth, that has some really kind of Social Distortion vibes, a little bit of rockabilly country vibe to that song. And it's really unique, and this is actually one of my favorite songs in the album personally. I know a lot of people don't know it that well, and it's not very recognized. It's not that recognizable of a song, but I really like it. And then Basket Case is about kind of Billy Joe kind of struggling with some mental illnesses. He was really he suffered from paranoia, and he felt like he was going crazy all the time. So that's what Basket Case was about. Really interesting song. I know it's really overplayed to a lot of people, and I would agree to you to some extent. It is kind of annoying hearing it all the time, but it's a good song nonetheless. And then She is a very aggressive, angry song, probably about an ex-girlfriend. And yeah, that's really all there is to say about that. It's really angry, really aggressive, very... there's... I don't know if it's just me or if there's actually a guitar tone shift in this song. It sounds a lot darker than the other songs, kind of more like it comes from Insomniac, which is the album they released after this. And then Sassafras Roots is kind of a contrast to that. It's more lighthearted, more catchy, more upbeat. It's about Billy kind of... I might be wrong, but I think it's about him falling in love with someone and how he wants to waste all of his time with her instead of wasting his time alone. Really catchy, really catchy, like instrumental work, really kind of fun lyrics. It's really fun to play on guitar. And I actually have a cover of this song on my channel if you want to listen to that. Then there's When I Come Around, which was one of my least favorite songs on the album, which, just my opinion. If you like it, you like it, but I didn't love the song. I didn't think it was too interesting. It sounded a bit too not radio friendly. It is radio friendly, but I guess it sounded too... It didn't really sound like a Green Day song to me. It sounded like they were trying to write a song for the radio, but that's just my opinion. Still a great song, just not my favorite song off the album. And then Coming Clean is a song about Billy kind of finding out who he is. It's about him kind of realizing his own sexuality, I guess, which is kind of interesting. It's kind of a brave thing to put on your first major label record, especially back in the 90s, because that wasn't as acceptable back then. Eminea Sleepus is about kind of running into your old friends after you haven't seen them for a while and noticing how much they've changed and how much they've kind of grown, and it's kind of interesting. Interesting lyrics written by Mike Dirnt. Then after that, you've got In the End. It's a really fast, really aggressive punk song, and this is the second to last track, and it's only about a minute, so it's not really a hardcore punk song, but you can kind of hear the influences on there because it's a lot faster than the rest of the album, and it's literally faster. It's like a minute and 30 seconds compared to the normal 3 to 4 minutes you get. And then the very last track on the album is called FOD, which I'm not going to say what that means, but you guys can look it up if you want. Want to keep this channel family friendly. It's very aggressive, very angry sounding, very dark sounding, almost Insomniac sounding. Like I said, the album after this album's called Insomniac, so it almost sounds like one of the songs off of that. And it's also got that Mixolydian sound to it, for the music theory nerds out there. Very cool. I always like it when Green Day uses Mixolydian. They use it quite a bit, and that's kind of one of the defining sounds of Green Day. But it's cool. It's unique. It starts out really kind of quiet, I guess. I think with Billy using an acoustic guitar and singing, and it's only a guitar and vocals, and then it breaks out about 2/3 of the way through with very extremely dark, distorted guitars with drums and bass, and he just kind of lets loose and goes crazy. So, yeah, really fitting into a really chaotic album. I mean, not chaotic in a sense like you compare to some hardcore punk albums, of course, but chaotic in its own Green Day way, I guess. It's a good album. Definitely one of my favorite albums of all time. It's the album that got me more into Green Day, more into the 90s era of Green Day, of course. This is pretty much the 90s era Green Day album right here. Yeah, it's full of that punk attitude, and yeah, so if I were to give it a rating out of 10, I'd probably give it a solid 8.8 to 9. just because there's better stuff out there, but this is still really good. Yeah, I definitely recommend it if you're getting into punk. It's pretty accessible. If you're not super into punk but you want to get more into it, this is a good place to start. And Green Day's a good band for that in general because they're pretty accessible, but they also have their moments where they're very punk sounding. And a lot of people say that they're not a punk band, but I completely disagree with that because their attitude's just too punk for you to not be able to say that. So, I don't know. Anyway, that was my review of Dookie by Green Day. I hope you enjoy it, and like I said, let me know if you like this format, if you don't, if you want to see me do other stuff on my channel, music related. I don't know, just I kind of like to brainstorm because I want to get some more stuff up on my channel because I've been kind of slacking on that. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys.